What kind of problem is this? Well, I see an integer and it's addition of integers. And I notice in this problem that they have opposite signs, so I have to find the difference between them. Different signs, find the difference. So 14 minus 6 is 8, so the answer will be 8, and there's more value to the 14, so it's a positive 8, and that's the final answer. Okay, what type of problem is this? Well, it's addition with integers, and I see two negative integers. So if they have the same signs, I'm going to add, same signs, I'm going to add them together. So 25 plus 9 is going to be 34. So that's going to be a 34, and it's going to be negative because negative plus more negative gives me a lot of negative, so it's a negative 34. What kind of problem is this? Well, it's addition with integers, but I do notice that they have different signs or opposite signs. I have a 52 and a negative 52. And if I put those together, they're opposites. Positive 52 plus a negative 52. Well, since there's different signs, I will subtract them. 52 minus 52 is 0. They cancel each other out, so the answer to this problem is 0. What kind of problem is this? Well, I notice that they're all addition right here, and I have an integer right there. So I have a positive value, a negative value, and a positive value. So I like to take my positive values and put them together first. 46 plus 18 is 64. So there's a 64 positive plus a negative 17. So now I'm going to subtract my 17. That would be 747. So this all put together would be 47. There's more value to the positive, so it would be a positive 47. What kind of problem is this? Again, I have addition of integers. I have a negative and a positive and a negative that I'm putting together. So in this case, I'm going to put my negatives together. 80 plus 24, because I'm adding them because they have the same signs. 104. So that's 104 negatives plus a 63. Now these values have opposite signs. So 104 minus 63, that's 41. So it's going to be a negative 41 because there's more value to my negative. This is a subtraction problem. It's not addition. So I want to make it into an addition problem. Well, I could do it a couple ways. I'm going to try this method. I'm going to add the opposite. That would turn this into a 35, and this would be a negative 140. These are now opposite signs, so I have to subtract them. So this would be 5, and 13 minus 3 is 10. So that would be 105. So the answer is going to be 105 negative because there's more value to the negative here. Another way I could have done this is if I had 35 minus 140. I could take the 35, I could take that sign with the 140 and add those together, and again I'd follow the same process. This is a subtraction of integers problem again. So I could add the opposite, or like that, and that turns into a negative 61 plus a negative 28, and negative plus negative, I would have to add those together. Negative 61 plus a negative 28. That would give me an 89 negative because negative plus more negative would give me a lot of negative. This again is a subtraction problem with integers, but I do notice the double negatives right there. And double negatives together make a positive. So it's negative 128 plus 73. And now I have opposite signs. I have a negative 128, and a positive 73. So I have to subtract those. 128 minus 73. That's 55. It's going to be a negative 55 because there's more value to the negative number there. Negative 55. Once again, I do not see any addition. I see subtraction of integers, and I know when I see a double negative, that will turn into a positive. So now I have negative 8 plus 50. And now I know that I have opposite signs there. I have a negative and a positive. So I have to subtract 50 minus 8 is going to be 42. So this is going to be a 42, and it's going to be a positive 42 because there's more value to the 50, the positive 50. What kind of problem is this? Well, I see subtraction, and I see fractions. And I know when I have fractions, I have to find a common denominator when I add or subtract. I see an 8. I'm going to try an 8. If I turn this 4 into an 8, 4 times 2 is 8. So what I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. 1 times 2 is 2. So this would turn into 2/8. Bring down the subtraction sign. Now that I have 8 as my denominator, I can go ahead and subtract these. Except for it says 2 minus 7. So I really can't do 2 minus 7. So I'm going to add the opposite. So now I have a negative 7 and a positive 2, which would still subtract those. 7 minus 2 is 5. So the difference between 2 and 7 there is 5. The 8 stays on the bottom. It's going to be a negative 5 because there's more value to the 7. So negative 5/8 is the final answer. This is addition of fractions. There's actually a 14 there. All right, in order to add fractions, you have to find a common denominator, but in this case, you have to find the improper fraction. So I would times n plus, that'd be 43 over 7, because that's 42 plus 1. And this is 14 times 3 plus 5, which is 14 times 3 is 42, plus 5 is 47 over 14. This is a negative. So now I have to still find a common denominator, which I'm going to look at that 14 first, because I know 7 times 2 is 14. So 43 times 2 is 86. Negative 47. So now I have to find the difference between these two values because there's a negative. So 86 minus 47, 39, 14ths, negative because there's more negative there. So 14 goes into 39 how many times? 2 whole times, which is going to be 28. 39 minus 28 is 11 14ths. Negative. And I'm going to check that with my calculator to be sure. And that is correct. This is addition of decimals with integers. I notice there's a negative sign right there, so I have to subtract these actually. But when you add and subtract decimals, you have to make sure you do what? Line up the decimals. Put a 0 there. I'm going to subtract because they're opposite signs. So 5, 12, 6, 3, 2, and it's going to be negative because there's more negative. So that's the answer to that one. What kind of problem is this? It is subtraction of integers. So when I subtract integers, I have to remember to add the opposite. So now I have a negative and a negative, which I'm really adding. So 11.5263. Line up the decimals whenever you add or subtract decimals, but now I'm adding. And it's going to be negative because negative plus more negative is a lot of negative. So final answer right there. This is a subtraction of integers problem. I noticed the double negatives right there, so I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, now I have a negative plus a positive, so which means I have to subtract them. But I have to line up the decimals. Put a 0 there. 10, 3, 9, 1, 2, 2, and this is negative because there's more negative, so final answer right there. Alright, this is a multiplication of integers. When you multiply integers, all I have to do is multiply like normal and then count the signs. So I know that 5 times 11 is 55. Let me get that a little darker. 55. And there's a 1 negative sign, so it's negative 55. This is multiplication of integers. All I do is multiply like normal. 30 times 4 is 120. It's going to be a negative 120 because there's only one. Oh, actually a positive 120 because there's 2 negative signs. So the answer will just be 120. This is a division of integers. I notice that there's 1 negative sign. When you divide integers, you divide like normal. So the 144 will go underneath, the 6 will go on the outside because the 144 comes first from left to right. So 6 does not go into 0, it goes into 14 2 times. 12, 2, that's a 12. Okay, so 2 and a 4. 6 goes to 24 4 times. So my answer is going to be 24, and it will be negative because there's only 1 negative sign. This is division with integers, so I'm going to divide like normal. The 48 goes underneath because it comes first from left to right, and there's my 3. 3 goes into 4 1 time, 3, 1, 8. 3 goes into 18 6 times, it would give me 18. So the answer is going to be 16, but there's 1, 2 negative signs, so it's going to be a positive 16. This is division with integers, so I just divide like normal. The 126 goes underneath because it comes first, the 9 on the outside. 9 goes into 1 0 times, and then goes into 12 1 time. That's 36. 9 goes into 36 4 times. So the answer is 14, because if I finished it, it would be that. There's one negative sign, negative 14. Final answer. This problem is division with integers, so I divide like normal. 104 goes underneath 8. 8 doesn't go into 1. 8 goes into 10 1 time. 8, 24. 8 goes into 24 3 times. So the answer is 13. Then I go back and I count my negative signs. There's 1, so negative 13. Okay, so this video gets you up from 1 to problem 21. So make sure those are right, double check them, make sure you're solving them right. I just did these to kind of give you a little bit of a narrative so that you can think through the problems a little bit more.